No, not on the couch. Come on, man. Hello and welcome to Monster of the Week, the only show on the internet. That's right. All the other shows are gone. But fortunately, I'm still here, and I'm ready to present the most interesting, diabolical, adorable, and obscure D&D monsters from D&D's history, tell you all about them, and bring them into 5th edition with brand new 5e stat blocks. And if you're just here for fantastic beasts, not only will I tell you where to find them, I'll also tell you why you should never go there. We have a lot of fun here on YouTube, but seriously, don't go looking for the fantastic beasts because they will kill you, and also they're not real. Unless you're playing D&D, which we are, so let's get right into it. This week we're taking a look at the Digester. This little critter is found in the original D&D 3.5 monster manual, and it's always been a strange, weird little monster that as I was flipping through the pages of the book looking for things to throw at my players, I would see it and go, man, that looks weird. It wasn't until I actually sent one of these monsters out to fight my party for the first time that I realized how interesting these creatures are, and how terrified of them most players become after a single encounter. The Digester owes its name to the fact that their primary means of attack is spewing acid on their enemies, which then melts them down into a goopy sludge, and then the Digester consumes what's left with what I imagine has to be an uncool amount of slurping. So today we're going to go over just exactly what a Digester is, what it can do in battle, and then we're going to dig into its lore, ecology, and try to comprehend why the gods of D&D would ever allow such a thing to exist. For those new to Monster of the Week, every video I do has a D&D 5th edition conversion of said monster linked in the description down below, so feel free to follow along or check it out after the video if you think the monster seems cool. Also, hi, welcome. I hope you're having a good time. Can I get you anything? A snack? Maybe a glass of water? No? Okay, well I hope you're enjoying the video and you stick around. Now take a seat and get those potions of acid resistance ready because it is time for... Clocking in at a CR of 5, the Digester is a lovely little monster because it makes no qualms about what it is. A hungry predator in a prey-rich environment. The first thing we want to examine here is that the Digester is pretty dang fast. With a movement speed of 50 feet per round, it's going to have no trouble chasing down most targets. That includes those mounted on horseback. When it comes to the tools in the Digester's kit, they are pretty simple but extraordinarily effective. The thing it's known for, spewing acid, is codified as the acid spray attack. This allows the creature to expel a 30-foot cone of acid, which deals 5d8 damage to everything within the area. That's pretty good for a CR5 creature, but it's nothing we haven't seen a bunch of other CR5 creatures do before. What makes this attack special is that instead of spraying a wide area for a bunch of damage spread across multiple creatures, it can also choose to focus all of its acid on a single target for 9d8 acid damage. I imagine this works kind of the same way as twisting the nozzle on a spray bottle. You know, you have the one setting for cleaning surfaces and the other setting for killing the final 0.01% of germs. Except in this case, the Digester's hyper-focused blast is for killing 100% of all people. This initial caustic spray is going to prove lethal to most targets the Digester's trying to take down, but if anything is still moving after a healthy dose of goopifying acid, the Digester will turn to its razor-sharp claws. At the bottom of those giant chicken feet, there are razor-sharp knives ready to slash through flesh. And that is pretty much the Digester's entire deal. It sprays people with acid and claws them until they die. Nice and simple. But I could not resist adding one more little dash of spice to the Digester. In my conversion, the Digester also has a trait called acid sacs. I imagine these creatures have to store all that caustic acid somewhere, and it stands to reason that a killing blow from a weapon that deals either slashing or piercing damage might break open the membrane inside the creature that stores the acid. So if the Digester is killed by piercing or slashing damage, its acid sac bursts open like a balloon and sprays everyone within 10 feet for a final screw you to its killers. In terms of building an encounter with the Digester, it's going to be at peak efficiency in big, wide open arenas. If it can soften up its prey with acid attacks until the targets are weak enough for it to go in and finish the job with its claws, that is exactly what it's going to do. It only has an intelligence score of 2, which means it's pretty animalistic in terms of behavior, but it has a wisdom of 12, which indicates it definitely understands good hunting practices. Just because wolves can't understand common doesn't mean they don't work together to take down prey while staying as safe as possible. And the same principle holds true in the case of the digester. So now that we understand how this thing hunts, let's move along and talk about its ecology, where it comes from, and how it behaves. Also, we're going to go over a few. The reason the digester does literally anything can be summed up in one word: hunger. Or maybe survival is more astute. The digester is very much an animal in the world of D&D. It is a monstrosity as far as its type goes and is not a beast, but that's mostly due to its unusual abilities. There aren't many beasts that can just spray armor-melting acid, but we are dealing with a creature that has an animal intelligence here. There's also very little canonized lore about the digester or its ecology, which is a little bit disappointing. But what we do know is this: they are nomadic, meaning they don't have a den or a nest. They kind of just move from location to location, going wherever there's plentiful food. Theoretically, if there was an abundant food source consistent enough to feed a digester or a pack of digesters constantly, they might settle down and stay in one spot for a while. A nearby cattle farm might facilitate such a need, but outside of something like that, this is not within their typical behavior. That does present a really interesting plot hook, though. I mean, perhaps you have a local cattle farmer who's having trouble with cows from their flock being taken. I'm sure they would be used to the occasional predator taking out a member of their herd, maybe local wolves or something of that caliber. But in this case, the place where the cow was killed has left nothing behind except for maybe a few bones and a bit of melted sludge that was formerly part of the cow. I imagine the grass and plants in the area might show signs of acidic damage, which would certainly be a clue your party could follow up on. And speaking of the party, this is where they enter the plot. They will likely have no idea what to expect firstly going into this situation, but they will get to go on a really fun and engaging hunt for a very peculiar monster. The interesting thing about this to me is that the digester isn't evil. It doesn't have a master plan to liquefy all cows within the realm. It's just trying to eat, and it does that to survive. And how your players deal with this quandary is going to vary from group to group by a lot. The easiest solution is definitely to just wipe them out the same way you would any pest interfering with a food supply. But the druids, rangers, or any class really that just has a soft spot for animals and understands that they're just doing what they're born to do might not be cool with that. They could try and relocate the beasts or maybe even tame them as an asset. The sky really is the limit here in terms of what your players will come up with to deal with this problem, and that's part of what I think makes it a fun and engaging encounter to throw at them, and it's also what makes this monster hunt so exciting. I'm a big fan of throwing problems at my players which I have no idea how they're going to solve. They will always do the one thing that you have not accounted for. Every time. On the topic of training them too, I love the idea that there might be some kind of ranch out there that raises digesters. There are a lot of reasons someone might want to own a digester as a pet or some form of livestock, but let's go over a few of my favorites. A local thieves guild leader or a corrupt politician with no access to magic could use a digester to get rid of bodies they don't want to be found. Nothing cleans the slate like melting down a body into a pile of unrecognizable sludge and then feeding that sludge to an acid-spewing monster. It would also make for a pretty poignant threat. Secondly, I could see a ton of appeal for using one of these creatures as a mount. They are medium creatures, which means only the smaller races of D&D would be able to ride them rules as written, but you could always adjust their size if you wanted to. If you don't want to just say that that's what they are and you want an in-game representation and explanation for why they're large creatures, you could even have a ranch where the owners have managed to use selective breeding to get the biggest digesters around, big enough for medium-sized creatures to ride on. A digester serving as a mount for a villain would be a really cool element to add to any type of enemy encounter. And it might even give the players a reason to save up their allowance. I imagine a digester mount would fetch a pretty high price at the market, so that could be something really fun for your players to spend their gold on as a cool reward. All in all, I think the digester is just a really bizarre and also fun monster to include in almost any D&D campaign. And for a monster that spews flesh-eating acid, they're pretty cute. I do want to give a special shout out to Solar on the Dungeon Dad Discord for recommending this monster, and of course, if you have a recommendation for a monster you'd like to see show up on Monster of the Week, feel free to drop it in the Monster Suggestion channel on Discord, or simply leave a comment here on YouTube telling me where to find your favorite monster from a past edition. Speaking of comments, if you found this video interesting, educational, inspiring, or maybe just entertaining, please consider leaving a like, or leaving a comment. Let me know how you would use this creature in your D&D game, along with what ideas and plot hooks you might have, because it helps me out a ton here on YouTube, and I need ideas for my next campaign. I also want to thank all you lovely patrons out there for your constant support. As always, the monster stat block is in the description below in the form of a Google document, but if you are one of those lovely aforementioned patrons, you can find the 5th edition Monster Manual style stat block over on the Patreon page. Thank you everyone so much for watching. I really do appreciate y'all being here week after week, and I hope the rest of your day is stellar. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then.